Power 2 here on College Football Addiction. Game week coming up in just a few hours because we've got games on Thursday and Friday. Though I don't want to start a rant on this. The scheduling guys could have done us a little better. I'm going to be watching Bills and Dolphins tomorrow because tomorrow is Rice versus Charlotte. And though I will put one TV on that, can we get an ACC game or something on a Thursday night that I can enjoy? Last week was great. So anyway, before I start complaining too much,
be more competitive, Bills and Dolphins or Rice and Charlotte? I mean,
Rice and Charlotte's gonna be more competitive.
Yeah,
but I like the pans over to Mike McDaniel.
It'll be more entertaining.
That's Keon's been playing better, so I like that. Josh Allen's fun, but yeah, the pans over to McDaniel. I know this is an NFL show, but those are pretty undefeated.
I live in Houston. I live near Rice. No, we root for Josh Allen and Jalen Waddle because my fantasy team is sitting at 2-0, and we want to continue to win and get more money and add more value to my livelihood. Because I don't really give a crap what you guys think about my fantasy team, but still, that's what I'm going to be paying attention to.
Yeah, the schedule makers. I got excited because it was like Thursday. It's Wednesday right now, obviously, for breaking news. And I was like, oh, what games are on tomorrow? And then I look and it's literally one game, Rice and Charlotte. We will not be previewing that today, unfortunately, to those out there that were maybe hoping to see that when they tuned in. But what we will preview is, you can see the rundown down there. Miami, Florida, USC and Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, which is a game that we talked about in the offseason as one that could decide some things in the Big Ten. Oklahoma, Auburn, the SEC's kind of premier matchup of the weekend. Utah, Texas Tech, the Big 12's matchup. And then the Big 10, a big one there too, Michigan and Nebraska. So we'll talk about all those. Start with Miami, Florida. We'll jump right into it so we can get through as many of these as we can without going so far over time today. Guys, I got a hot take, and these are two of my rivals, so I don't mind starting with this. If you had, and I'll give you my answer, but I want to ask you as well. If I had a vote in the AP poll, which I know we've railed on that a ton, but if I had a vote in the AP poll, Miami would be my number one team in the country. And it has nothing to do with my like for what will be a quality win or a quality loss for Florida State. It has nothing to do with they're playing a rival this weekend or they are a rival this weekend. To me, they've had the most impressive resume so far in the season. I'll take arguments for other people, but I certainly think they should be ahead of, LSU, Penn State. Ohio State's the one I think you could question a little bit just because they did beat Texas. But again, what has Texas done since then? I know you can say the same thing for Miami playing Notre Dame. Yeah, they're 0-2 as well. I get it. I just think Miami's looked more dominant. I think they've been better. I think Beck's been better than a lot of people were expecting. I think Miami is right now. I'm not saying they'll be there at the end of the year because they still need to make it through a lot of tough games, namely this one and the next one they play. But Miami to me has been the most impressive team in the country. They were even highly ranked in the preseason too, but they would be my number one team in the nation right now. Again, Ohio State's maybe the one team that I'll listen to. But for a 3-game sample size, they've been the best to me.
I won't push back. I have Ohio State at number 1, but I think that number 2 very well is Miami. And maybe my rankings say otherwise. I probably misconstrued that. Going back and watching the way that they were able to dominate after that after that rain delay in the second half against South Florida, a very good South Florida team that many people still need to give respect to for how they've been able to start off their season with wins over Boise State and over Florida, I think speaks incredible volume about where this roster is and where it's going to continue to go. Defensively, they have one of the best run units in college football. They may have the best offensive line in college football. They know what their strengths are in running the football with all 3 running backs. And they didn't even have Jordan Lyle in one of the matchups last week. So again, there is an opportunity for them to get better on the ground. You're watching as Keelan Marion's adding in more volume. We know that you have a great player in CJ Daniels. You have Malachi Toney that is not a freshman. Like he's looks like the part of a 2-year starter that has just been so acclimated to this offense. I just think Ohio State, because of going up against Texas's defense, that still is showing on up, and to be able to score 14 points and what they have as an identity makes them still, in my opinion, the best team. But I'm not going to fight you over, hey, 1 versus 2. These right now are the 2 teams that I have the most confidence in on the direction that they're going heading into October.
It's the immense confusion we were talking about it this past week of like the AP polls. It's like, yeah, I understand why teams are in the spots that they're in within those polls, within those rankings. But when you watch the teams, when you watch these games, Miami is the most well-rounded team. I believe I said earlier on this week, they'd be my number 1 in the country. the competition they face. People can try and knock the Notre Dame thing, and I understand not ranking Notre Dame, but you have to look at what Notre Dame has done in terms of their performance against Miami and Texas A&M and say that is probably one of the top 15 at least teams in the country in Notre Dame. You're not going to rank them appropriately because they haven't won the games, but in terms of the quality of competition they can field, I think you have to give a lot of credit to that victory for Miami. So this one up against Florida, I've said it before, I really hate this matchup for Florida, and especially the way that they stunk it up against LSU. DJ Lagway attempting to rebound after a horrific game against LSU. This does not set up well for the Gators.
Can I complain for about 5 seconds when it comes to Florida?
You can complain for as long as you want on this show, buddy.
I know, because then guess what? I just get made fun of in the comments section. I'd stop reading because you want to know what? I can't do it anymore. If I'm Billy Napier, how the hell am I calling this football game? Like honestly, how am I calling this game? Because I don't know if there's a right way. Think about this for a second, boys. This is the best run defense that Florida will see this upcoming season, potentially for the rest of the year. Like, Texas has an argument, but right now, I'm not going to go past Miami. With what they have in their trenches, Ruben Bain coming off of the edge, this is going to be one of the best units they face. They're averaging 6.9 yards a play with Jaden Baugh as the lead running back. And so far, he's averaged less than 13 carries a game. Like, did he break a rule? Is he staying out late past curfew? Is he going on TikTok and cursing Billy Napier's name and that's why he's getting punished? But like, this is where you want to trust your run game, but you can't trust your run game because if it's the best run defense in college football. But also, you don't want to put all this pressure on DJ Lagway to have to be the answer in this game. Here's the thing, though. He's going to have to be the answer in this game because of the way to win is still taking advantages, despite there not being a lot, against this Miami secondary. Miami secondary still gave up almost 300 passing yards to South Florida. Now, was a lot of that in garbage time? Absolutely. But the big element that last season hindered the success of the Hurricanes, especially down the stretch, was their inability to stop the explosive plays. But do you trust DJ Lagway to make those explosive plays, even if they do have a good wide receiver room with J. Michael Sturdivant and Trey Wilson and Aiden Mizell, and maybe you get back Dallas Wilson for this game and Vernell Brown and Nashawn Montgomery, when at this point, you've watched as Lagway continuously is surveying the field, he's staring down a safety, and he's going, you know what, screw it. He'll catch the ball, and then he throws it right into triple coverage. So it's a problem where if I'm Billy Napier, I don't know what is the best course of action. Do I just try to ground and pound it out with two running backs that I think could be very successful and may end up being one of the better tandems in the SEC and hope that there's just a final moment of a straw that breaks the camel's back and we get that explosive run? Or do I trust that my passing attack is going to be the answer when, honestly, at this point, it's very hard to trust DJ Lagway because of what he has shown me over the last 3 games. He doesn't look confident. He doesn't look poised. And more specifically, he looks like a quarterback that's in over his head. And unfortunately, he's also the best option that you have on the roster right now.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to establish the ground game in this, or try to. I mean, you asked the question of how do you call this if you're Billy Napier. I mean, you got to stick with Jaden Baugh. The way that I've seen Florida fans melt down over them going away from him after being somewhat successful. What did he have? Like a 4.6 average against LSU. Everybody else is like down in the 2s. He was running it somewhat effectively against a good LSU front. And then again, they for the last 2 weeks, they've gone away from him, which is weird. And again, I do think Miami has one of the best run fronts in the country. And so that is going to be tough. But man, you've got 2 All-Americans on that offensive line. And I know the right side has not been great for Florida this year, but I mean, they got to find a way to buck up. You can't. Does he have the talent? Yes. Where's his head right now? That's a huge question. To me, you can't put this all on DJ Lagway's shoulders. And you've got to, I mean, to me, what are the recipes for an upset? Well, you got to be able to run the ball, you running the ball travels. And, I know it's Miami's defensive line, and you got to rely on your defense. And that's your way to an upset, right? And so I don't think you put this all on DJ Lagway's shoulders. If you can get the ground game established at all early, which Notre Dame couldn't, obviously USF couldn't, then yeah, I think that's where you'll have some success. Obviously much easier said than done, but that has to be the plan of attack. Now, if you go down 14-3 or 17-10 or whatever, like, yeah, you might have to, well, 17-10 you wouldn't, but you get the idea. You might have to open things up a little bit more with Lagway. I do think what is maybe comforting to Florida is, conversely, when we talk about, UF struggles potentially against a really good Miami front. I know Caleb Banks is not there, but this is still a really good Florida front too. And the loss of Banks is tough. But if you can limit Miami's ground attack, which is very good, and I think they've got a three-headed monster back there in the backfield that is spectacular. I do think that is Beck has not historically been incredibly elite against Florida, right? And so if you can use a really good defensive front and a really good defense overall that held, again, a struggling LSU offense, but held LSU down pretty well, I think that's where you maybe have a little bit of hope that you can make this a fourth quarter game if you're Florida. I said this last week too. I think Florida gets up for this. I think they absolutely play their tails off. I think they played their tails off last week, and just Lagway gave 5 turnovers away. If they don't throw the 5 picks, they have a great chance to go in and win that game. Both offenses scored 10 points. I mean, I don't know what more you want. You want more offense if you're Florida, but I don't know what more you want going into Baton Rouge at night and holding the other team to 10 points. Now, Miami's offense much better right now, clicking much better than LSU's. Not a lot of concern around the way that their offense is playing, but as much as we want to give LSU's offense crap, Florida's defense is really good, and they played really inspired, and they made things difficult on Nussmeier. And I think that's going to be a lot tougher to replicate down in South Florida because I think Miami's offensive line and offense overall is just playing better and just is better right now. But I mean, that's if you're going to find any kind of comfort or if you're going to find any kind of path to lie to yourself and think you can win this game if you're Florida, it is on the strength of what should be a pretty good defense and what hopefully would be a pretty good rushing attack for the Gators too.
I know Florida believes in DJ Lagway. Unfortunately, you can't take the Haynes King approach with him and run him 20 times, and that's not really his game. It's the same misconception I think Ohio State fans had about Dwayne Haskins once upon a time, not putting Lagway in that Haskins pantheon in terms of working as a passer. He still has a lot to develop, but when his attempts balloon over 30, it is not a good situation. I understand trying to put the ball in the hands of your best playmaker, but DJ Lagway is clearly struggling when it comes to processing. Play tempo, make the decisions quick and easy for him. I'm thinking back to some of the older Florida offenses with Chris Leak and Tim Tebow. It's 1 or 2 reads, tuck it and run, or you've got to come up with other things in the run game, more creative ways to get things to your wide receivers and tailbacks than just DJ Lagway stepping back and having to read a defense. I don't like those chances. If Florida can run tempo and keep things moving quickly, they can deter that pass rush that Miami has, because that's going to be a factor again in this game. And we haven't even mentioned Carson Beck.
Yeah.
Carson Beck has looked super steady this entire season. I've been one of the first people to be a criticizer and a hater on Carson Beck. He's looked real strong so far this year. He looks really, really comfortable in this offense. He's got weapons. He has a smart offensive line that's following his lead, and he's got a run game to back him up. Not much more that number 11 could ask for.
The thing is that with Carson Beck too, this isn't uncharted territory for him. Remember, he played at Georgia. One of the biggest rivalries in college football is the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. He's played against Billy Napier's defense twice in his career. So this is a team that he has had his fair share of struggles. He had 3 interceptions last season out in Jacksonville, but he also threw for 300 yards. So it's not a level of competition where you say, well, it's an SEC team, and it's an SEC team that recruits really well and that they're going to be able to dial up some things that we haven't seen before. It's like, no, Carson Beck has seen this before, and he's seen it efficiently. And even in games where he was struggling, he still had some success. You don't just throw for 300 yards and say that it's a luck of the draw portion. There has to be some skill behind that. And to Tom's credit, and to really my credit, I was very much bullish on Carson Beck rebounding out in South Florida this year. I thought that, again, not having an offseason and being able to catch on up in Shannon Dawson's personnel is really been beneficial for him. I think that you look at the way that he feels confident. The thing that we also don't give a lot of credit to, and it's a little bit bothersome, is we talk about that Carson Beck was an issue last season at Florida, and then, at Georgia, and then we'll also think about, well, they didn't have a good offensive line. Well, the wide receivers were dropping balls left and right, and they didn't have that good rushing attack. And now Georgia has that stuff. Yeah, well, Carson Beck now has maybe a better offensive line, and he has not the same type of weapons, but still very, very good weapons, and maybe not the same type of impact for running backs, but still very efficient running backs. So the pressure's not on him to have to be the guy in this game. The thing that I wonder about in this, and this is ultimately what's going to decide from a mentality standpoint, this is a letdown spot for Miami, and it's a sure-up spot for Florida. Incredible game last week against South Florida. To be able to deliver the way that Florida couldn't, and the way that you've looked, people are probably hyping you up, which means, from a narrative perspective, this is where you let things go. You let your guard down a little bit and you fall short. And then from Florida's standpoint, you looked dreadful offensively last week. You weren't able to get the job done against South Florida. But when you're in wounded animal mode and that you have to go figure things out and play from a standpoint of, hey, we truly do believe in ourselves and we're not ready to go ahead and call it a career. We're not ready to throw in the towel. This is where you kind of scratch and claw, and not to be, physicalities from a standpoint, but literally take a bite out of an ibis and go for the kill shot because of you have nothing to lose at this standpoint. My fear is that the common opponent factor is a big selling point. One team was able to dismantle South Florida. The other team found almost no offensive success.
It's daunting for Florida. I also wonder, just when we think about this, if that Florida offensive line, this is a huge if to me, but if that Florida offensive line can hold up just a little bit, I don't have a lot of confidence in DJ Lagway right now after what we just saw. But I would say the weakest part of this Miami team, though much improved, is their secondary. And Florida has the athletes on the outside, and they love, DJ's not been incredibly, good this year. Now, there have been some UF drops too that have kind of hurt them. If Vernell Brown catches a pass, they do end up beating South Florida. And then maybe we kind of look at this a little bit differently. And maybe his confidence going into LSU is a little bit different. Maybe that plays out differently too. But I do think that if they can give him any time at all, there is a chance that he could have a really nice day through the air. There's also the chance that he could go out and throw 3 picks again, right? Like there's no doubt that exists. It didn't take a great LSU secondary to make, they weren't making diving one-handed interceptions, bouncing off. Yeah, those were just
he was taking risks.
Right. And so if he's less risky against a less talented secondary, which again, Miami fans I've just said you were the number 1 team in the country, back off me a little bit, but it's still the weakest part of their team. There's no doubt. And they're still much improved from last year. But if you're going to have success, we talk about the running game, we talk about giving him time, we talk about Florida stopping the run. Lagway's going to have to hit a couple of those guys. USF was able to hit a couple of those guys. Notre Dame was able to hit some of those long passes. Lagway's got the most arm talent of anybody they've played this year. It's just you wonder about his decision-making. That secondary, there are opportunities to get at them. The problem is, can you keep Ruben Bain and Akeem Ezador off of Lagway's back to give him the time to get that done? If you can, there are wins in that secondary for Florida to go out and take. But again, that's a massive if. And will Lagway make the right decision? Will he read the defense well? I'm sure Heatherman's got stuff very much schemed up after watching last week. And so it's that chess game within the game of, well, whose adjustments are better? At the end of the day, and we can predict this thing and move on to the game. At the end of the day, I just don't know that I buy Florida going in and play with where their headspace is, with losing Caleb Banks, with just they lost their running backs coach for smacking a kid at LSU. Not that I think that, but just everything that's going on right now with Florida, they need a nearly perfect performance. They need Beck to give them a few, which he did in Jacksonville last year. He had 3 picks. They need a lot of things to go right. And so if you play this game 20 times, I'm taking Miami 16 or 17 times. This is one there. Yeah, the rivalry factors in. Florida's got talent. There's no doubt. There's some times where this is going to go your way. But when I look at this game, I really struggle to see Florida being able to do enough. I think their defense will show up. I just don't know that their offense can do quite enough. I can't remember what I gave as a score for this earlier in the week, but I'll say something like, 24-13 or 24-17. I think Miami, I do think it's closer. They may cover the spread, but I do think that Miami gets this by at least a touchdown.
I think this spread is disrespectful to Miami and really respectful of Florida. I think it's 7.5. Give me Miami covering the spread. I will take the under, however. Give me 30-13 Miami.
I think Miami, again, for the standpoint of what you're going to have to do in this matchup, you're going to have to force turnovers on Carson Beck. I'm not saying it can't be possible. The fear is that you get those turnovers. Cool story. What do you do with them afterwards?
Yep.
Is it 3 and outs? Is it giving the ball right back on a punt return? Special teams are going to play a big time deal. I agree with Tom on both standpoints. I think that Miami wins this game. I think Miami covers, but I am taking the under, and I think it's one of the best bets in college football this weekend because of just how good of a defense we have seen from Florida. I'm going to go 30-17 final score in this matchup. I think it, my bad, if it's at 28-17 in this matchup. I just think that it's going to be at least a 1 extra score game, and Miami's going to truly show that whether or not I, TJ, or Tom agree, this is potentially the best roster in college football going into week 5.
Yeah. I do have some faith in Florida's off. I like your 28 pick. I mean, I know I said 24, but I would be now if Lagway gives them a couple, then that could certainly impact things. But I'd be a little surprised if Florida's defense gave up 30 points here. The other thing is I wouldn't be surprised if Mario is, I don't want to say conservative, but I wouldn't be surprised if he is very willing to say, hey man, we're not going to take risks. Like Carson ain't going to throw him another 3 picks like he did last year. We ain't going to take risks. That's a talented defense. We'll let Florida give the game to us. And that keeps it a little bit more low scoring than otherwise. Now, again, conversely, if Lagway throws more than 2 interceptions or maybe even really more than 1, it could be a long day and you could see that score balloon a ton. So
I could see a scenario where unless they're not giving the game to you, you take those risks. But if Florida just gives you the opportunities, you run with it and call it a day. Don't put yourself in a position where you're showing too much of maybe the still issues that Carson Beck has, which so far doesn't look like he has any.
Very limited.
It feels like he feels really, really, really good. One interception in that South Florida game was an arm punt. So I'm not going to sit here and kind of oversaturate that.
I do think they dropped one other one too. So I will say he did take a chance that maybe he shouldn't. And then CJ Daniels saved him with one of the catches of the year so far against Notre Dame, which was insane. But hey, man, when they come down with it, they come down with it. Let's play our more or less game presented by Sleeper. Use our code CFA for 100% match up to $100. Check the terms and conditions. Their terms of use do apply. We're not doing everything that's on this screen, but we will do some of them. Let's start with John Mateer. 256.5 passing yards, more or less, against Auburn. SEC, so Cole, go ahead.
More. I think that Sawyer Robertson was a good blueprint on where were the issues in that Auburn secondary. And if you force them to take away the rushing attack right now, you're going to have to win through the air. So I'm going to go with more. I just feel like that's a pretty easy play at this point.
I'm going to go with less, but very slightly under that number because I think John Mateer is going to put up some rushing numbers as well. I feel like there's not going to be a lot of significant defense. I think there's going to be a lot of scoring in this game for Oklahoma. I think Auburn will be able to put up some points as well, but I think John Mateer is going to do John Mateer things through the air and with his legs. So I think that's why you'll see the passing number maybe come down a little bit. So I say less.
I'll go more just to let people know the line is juiced pretty heavily towards more as like a bonus if you are taking that. That's why it's highlighted there in yellow on your screen. I'll take more as well. I'll be the sucker that goes with the public and probably loses the pick. Justice Haynes from Michigan. We'll preview this game in a few minutes. 84.5 rushing yards against that Nebraska front on the road.
Tom, you're the Big Ten guy.
It's going to have to be more. It's going to have to be more. Their lone touchdown against the aforementioned Oklahoma Sooners in Norman was a 75-yard touchdown run by Justice Haynes. And after that, all they could muster was a field goal, and that was after a muff punt. So it really wasn't great offensively for Michigan last time they were on the road against a legitimate opponent. Nebraska is going to be ready for this game. I still think this is a coin flip game. I think Michigan is favored by 2.5 in this one on the road, which is a little surprising considering the way they played. But I've said it before. Right now, Michigan is a service academy offense with a very talented, athletically gifted freshman quarterback. They need to run the ball. Justice Haynes more.
I think it's more because of Nebraska against Cincinnati gave up 6.7 yards of play on the ground. And don't get me wrong, some of that was just the mobility of what you had with Brendan Sorsby, but still, 6.7 yards is 6.7 yards. So bottom line, you are going to look at this as a game to where Justice Haynes, one run maybe for 40 yards, and you just pick up the rest later on.
Also, my rule for anybody named Haynes and rushing yards for the rest of 2025 is more.
Georgia Tech is stuck in your craw for the rest of the year, and I love it. Carson Beck, 265.5 passing yards against the Gators. I'm going to go less here. I think he has a great day, but again, I'll trend with you guys and say this is probably a little bit lower scoring. Probably he has some short fields to work with. Caleb Banks not in there. I think they do try to establish the run, and they do it very well at Miami. I think Beck has a nice day. I'm not out on him or anything like that, but I'll go less here for sure.
I agree. Less. Still a nice day. I just don't think Beck is going to have to do as much. I think they're going to lean on the running game.
3 for 3, less. Trust the run game. Give what you are given. Don't go ahead and make too many mental mistakes if you're Carson Beck.
Bryce Underwood against Nebraska, that same defense. We talked about more for Haynes, but Not a huge number here. 180.5 passing yards for Bryce Underwood.
I'll say more, but not by a lot, and not necessarily indicating that all of a sudden Bryce Underwood looks like Trevor Lawrence or something like that. Let's be clear. Yeah, more. And I think this Nebraska defense will give a little bit to Bryce Underwood in this game. The Cincinnati game, it's tough. Like Cole was just talking about it. That's really the only data point that we have to look at, and it's apples to oranges comparing what Cincinnati will field versus what Nebraska has done so far this year. But I'm going to say more.
If you told me this was rushing yards, I would say more, but it's passing.
180 rushing yards for Bryce Underwood?
Listen, he got off last week. I mean, just remember Central Michigan. It may be Central Michigan, but we saw him finally utilize his legs.
Yeah.
I'm taking less. I right now, the question marks you have at wide receiver, as Tom mentioned, it's a militant academy, basically offensively at this point. I can trust that he is going to get his yards. I just don't think it's going to come through the air.
I'll go less here as well. Slightly less. Wish you could tease these lines a little bit, but I'll go slightly less as well. DJ Lagway, 218.5 passing yards. I know I took the less on Beck, but I'll take the more here. I think they're going to have to throw the ball. They also just like to get the ball to guys in space, whether that's, him taking, obviously he likes to throw the deep ball. And if he's accurate with it, you can get 40 yards a chunk, but they also just like to, they love these swing passes. They can go for 12 or 14 yards. They love the wide receiver screen at UF. So I think he'll rack up a lot of yards. I think he'll have to rack up a lot of yards. And I don't think that's a massive number. So 218.5, I'll go more on Lagway.
Yeah, I'll go more on Lagway too. Last two games, 222 yards against South Florida and a loss, 287 yards against LSU and a loss, plus five interceptions. So I think it'll be a lot of garbage time stuff trying to come from behind. But yeah, I'd say more.
Last two games he's had over 218 passing yards, so I'm going to go to more.
Let's do the last one on that page. Actually, no. Let's for the sake of time, let's flip over. Jackson Arnold, 42.5 rushing yards.
That's an interesting one.
I'll go more here, by the way. I'll just throw it out there. I'm not even going to give any reasoning. I'm just going more.
I'll say less. I think there will be opportunities in the passing game. Venables' defense against Auburn, he's still going to create some problems for he being Venables against this Auburn offense. I still think Auburn does a lot scoring in this game, but I don't know if I like Jackson Arnold. I just don't like this matchup for him in general. Cole, what do you think?
He's going to have to run it. I mean, the problem is, do you let him run it?
Like they know that.
The beauty of what is a Brent Venables defense, and especially with him at Oklahoma, he knows what our strengths and his weaknesses. And the thing is that this could be very similar to the game plan of what you had with Michigan just a few weeks ago. You take away the rushing element and say, you want to win this football game, you're going to have to win through the air. So I go more because I just think he's going to make one or two plays of those explosive 18 to 20 yard runs, which will hit the over. But I don't think it's going to be by much. I mean, we're talking like maybe 51 yards, 48 yards. Like we're right on that line of saying yes or more or less.
Let's finish up with Mark Fletcher. We've talked a ton about Miami and Florida, 75.5 rushing yards. Again, I'll take the under here. I think that they're going to tote the ball pretty well, but I also think that they'll pass the ball around a ton or share the ball in that backfield, let other guys get involved. Seems like a big number. It is a big number, 75.5 rushing yards, but I think they share the ball too much for that one. So I'm not down on Miami. I just picked them to win and cover, but give me the less here.
I'll go more just because I could see Miami trying to salt this thing away in the second half. Not that they're terrified of Florida, but they just realize they're like, we can put our foot on the gas, or we can take our foot off the gas, and get away with the win.
I'm not going to sit here and act like I know if Jordan Lyle is going to be playing in this game. What I will say is I agree with TJ that it's less because I think you have another running back that we got to see a little bit more from. Shamar Brown coming on in from North Dakota State. He had a good game last week. Let's see if he can actually have a role where maybe he is a difference maker in several matchups to where you have a 1-2-3 combination each week. Somebody is your lead back. So I trust it. I'm going to go less because I think that Shamar Brown is the running back we need to be talking about.
Let's head on over to the SEC and let Cole talk about South Carolina and Missouri. How much does Shane Beamer need a miracle in this one?
I don't think he needs a miracle. I just think the bottom line is that right now, without Lenore Sellers and the status of him, as we're recording, the injury report has not come out. And Shane Beamer said that they would announce what his status was going into this week on the injury report. We don't know if Sellers is going to be playing in this matchup. Bottom line is that there are some questions on the offensive line, massive questions I don't think are going to be solved. Questions at the wide receiver position, whether it's you're not giving enough reps to Jared Brown and Mazeo Bennett because you like the freshmen. The freshmen aren't delivering on their end of the bargain, so maybe they have to see more of a veteran feel. Same thing with the tight end position with with a Hunt versus going up with a Michael Smith. But regardless, in my opinion, you have a shot offensively because of who is your quarterback. Lenore Sellers is Superman. He can do whatever he wants in the backfield. And sometimes you just sit back and wonder, how is he able to continuously make play after play after play? It's just something that you just prepare for if you're a defensive coordinator. But if he's not out there and you're turning to Luke Doty once again, this is a matchup against a very, very good and revamped Mizzou defense that has really responded in so many different facets since that first quarter against Kansas. They definitely feel like they are going to create some turnovers. They got a good pass rush headlined by Damon Wilson. The linebackers have done an exceptional job of playing in the right coverage systems to where they're not leaning too far out and giving up too many yards after contact. They're hitting at the right time. It's form-fitting tackling. Corey Batoon's been one of the more underrated hires in the SEC and really college football, I would say, for the last 2 years, for how well he's acclimated himself to fitting in place of Blake Baker. From the standpoint of Mizzou offensively, can you set tempo in this game? What are we going to see from this running back tandem of Jamal Roberts and Ahmad Hardy? Hardy's proven at this point he's good enough to be an all-world running back. It's not he's a good G5 running back that plays a complementary role at Mizzou. He is a great running back that just has made his mark, over 250 yards last week. Jamal Roberts, though, has done a good job of being a good balanced contact piece on being that second element. He gets to the outside corner, he's off to the races. So you got to feel confident in him. And then Bo Pribula, from a standpoint of how well he has built a rapport with multiple receivers in the red zone. Him and Brett Norfleet are just connecting. You look at Kevin Coleman. He's come on in and been an immediate upgrade as a wide receiver two. I mean, as a wide receiver one, but would have been a quality wide receiver two last year opposite of Luther Burden. And he just said he wants to leave a legacy that's better than what the former number 3 did. So the way he's played so far, you got to be pretty impressed with. You also got to be pretty impressed with how Marquise Johnson and Donovan O, the freshman, have been able to be significant secondary elements to this passing attack. The confidence and the consistency of what we've seen from Pribula, this is going to be a challenge for Clayton White's defense because of they've had some opportunities where they just can't make plays in the backfield on a mobile enough quarterback to create second chance opportunities, which allows them to connect on those first downs. We saw it with Diego Pavia last week. How many times were they able to not bring him down behind the line of scrimmage, and then he would find an open receiver, get a fresh set of downs, constantly move the chains? That's going to be another major element. I think from the standpoint of South Carolina offensively, if you don't have Sellers out there, even if you do have Sellers out there, you have to have a secondary weapon. You have to, whether it be a trust factor and Michael Smith, a tight end, or Rasul Faison finally showing on up and being the running back that you envisioned when he signed on in from Utah State, Oscar Attaway going into his second year of the program, or better yet, you get Nick Harbor and insert one of these freshmen that you thought were so talented that you didn't need to go out in the portal and bring in another guy. They're stepping on up. But regardless, you cannot trust a concussion protocol and limited Lenore Sellers to have to be your first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and sometimes eighth option to win this football game. Because if you want to make this a battle, especially on the road with a surging Mizzou squad that has an identity and really is trying to make a statement once again. Again, we kind of are underrating Mizzou because we're talking about Georgia Tech and what they've done. We're talking about what Vanderbilt's been able to accomplish. And Mizzou, the AP poll is saying, okay, I mean, you're top 25, but you're nowhere near the college football playoff rankings. We're not going to give you respect. They may want to put pedal to the metal in this game. You're going to rely on the explosive plays. I think if you are South Carolina, you're going to rely on tempo if you're Mizzou. I think just the bottom line, and it sounds like a cop-out, if you don't have Lenore Sellers, it feels like it's going to be a lopsided game and get out of control pretty quickly because of you're going to turn the ball over with just punt returns. Vakari Swain, special teams for South Carolina. It's been a factor in their first 2 wins. I think it's going to have to be a factor in this game as well.
What's the likelihood Bo Perbula is the SEC Offensive Player of the Year once it's all said and done?
If he wins this game and he wins outright, I mean, I'd say right now he's the third best quarterback in the SEC. I think John Mateer and Taylor Green have been a little bit more impressive, but it's very hard to argue outside of that Bo Perbula has not been as advertised. I mean, Tom, let me ask you, in State College, I got to grab my laptop charger after this so just ramble for a second. Do you look at this from a perspective of, hey, Drew Aller's a good kid, but our ceiling would be a little bit higher if we had Perbula still on the roster?
I freaked out this past week on my podcast, State of Penn State Football Show, after Drew Aller underwhelmed against FCS Villanova. He's closer to Christian Hackenberg than he is Kerry Collins or Todd Blackledge in the history of Penn State football. I think he has all the physical gifts. There's just stuff between the ears where he just doesn't process very well. Cannon for an arm, tremendous arm talent like Hackenberg, but just make some really interesting decisions. Sometimes interesting not being the best word when it comes to Hackenberg's pass. So Bo Perbula would have been a better fit in what Andy Kotelnicki wants to do offensively. That was proven last year, and I think it's being proven again this year. But I still think, to the points about Penn State, they'll be just fine. Ultimately, it's just a different type of ceiling with what the offense could do. Listen, I made the comparison to the days of Chase Daniel and Jeremy Maclin with this offense for Mizzou. It's not exactly the same, but they know exactly who their weapons are. South Carolina doesn't. And if you don't have Lenora Sellers healthy for this game, having a guy that's listed as a wide receiver starting a quarterback for you and asking him to throw nearly 30 times a game in their last outing against Vanderbilt, their total scoring against legitimate opponents has been 7 and 11. They hung 38 on South Carolina State. I do not like South Carolina's ability to keep up with Mizzou on the scoreboard. So give me the Tigers in this one.
I think that another thing that you have to realize is third down conversion rate is going to be really big.
Mm-hmm.
Vanderbilt averaged 50%. It was 25% for South Carolina. Penalties are going to play a big time deal. South Carolina had 8 for 85 yards. Naturally, if you take away the targeting call, it was 4 for 25. So that's kind of where we are when it comes to Vanderbilt's squad. Maybe Vanderbilt's a more polished team than Mizzou. I'm not saying that Mizzou is not a polished team. What I will say is that there has to be a game plan in practice this week that does not include Luke Doty as a starting quarterback. It could be Aaron Noland, could be somebody else, but you have to have something to where you can turn away from Doty if things aren't working out and go in a different direction. Is that going to be enough on the road against a surging Mizzou squad that is looking for that signature win at this point in the season, opposite of the Border War? I don't think so. I think that Mizzou is, again, one of the more disrespected teams in college football. Boys, they're third in wins over the last 3 years. I mean, they're third in freaking wins in the SEC, and we treat them like a second-class program. I think those days are kind of dwindling down. We're getting to the end of the rope. I think this is where you get a win, and you get a signature one. Not only do you win, but you cover. I got a final score of 30-20. I do think that you will see some fight in South Carolina. I just don't think it's going to be enough with or without Lenore Sellers.
Yeah, I probably would have picked, if there wasn't the concussion, I think the way that Missouri has looked this year and the way that South Carolina has looked this year, they're relatively even teams. I think I would pick Missouri in this either way. Now, I wouldn't pick a blowout if Sellers was there, but going on the road and you haven't looked that inspiring through most of the season, like I don't even think this is that hard. Then you factor, like I would guess the Sellers doesn't play. I've not heard anything. I've not talked to anybody. My guess would be that he isn't going to play or is extremely limited because of coming off of the concussion. So yeah, this is not even a tough pick. Now I like South Carolina and I wish they'd do well, but Missouri wins this by, I would say 17, 34-17 would, I get, yeah. I'll go with a nice even round number, 34-17 Missouri.
Hey, remember this again when you go rank them AP, Koki Riley, Haley Sawyer. they also beat South Carolina. So give them credit where credit's due. Oh, wait, you're just going to probably move South Carolina up even more than what you did last week.
Hopefully Haley's just done putting in ballots. Koki should be next, in my opinion. Mizzou, give me the Tigers 31-6. And here's the thing. I'll push back on something you said, Cole. This won't be a signature win if Lenora Sellers doesn't play, because all you're doing is beating the brand. You're not really beating South Carolina at full strength in 2025. So it'll feel good, but publicly, it'll be like, there'll be an asterisk next to it.
Of course they will. And you know what? That's fine, because once again, it is the brand of Mizzou football.
Let's go over to the Big Ten. Tom, you're up. Illinois versus Indiana this weekend.
Big time slugfest in the Big Ten. I'm excited about this one. And I know we were talking about where college game day could be. Like, this is a pair of teams that are unbeaten at this point in the year. Obviously, it's a young season, but I still think there's a lot that could be determined out of this thing. This far into the season, Illinois has actually played somebody. The road game at Duke, where Mensa absolutely fell apart. Not entirely because of Illinois, but Illinois played very, very well on the road. There are a lot of questions about what Illinois was going to be this year with the departure of Franklin and Bryant in the passing game. This is still an offense that likes to throw the ball, and they're going to rely on that. They're still struggling to run the ball in the interior, but Luke Altmaier has taken a step. Is it a significant step? No, he was able to rely on guys that were really talented last year to make that Illinois passing offense go. He is able to elevate people around him at this point in the year. Indiana, they have been thumping bad competition. I do not understand what Kurt Cignetti and company believe themselves to be. I think they believe in 1 year they went from IU to OU or University of Alabama or something like that. Like, I think they think they're a blue blood and they can schedule bad non-con teams in the beginning of the season, thump them, and then immediately demand respect from the national media. And it was like, well, we made the college football playoff last year. We should be in that conversation. You have to win a game like this, especially at home, if you want to shut down that conversation. I like what Fernando Mendoza looks like so far. Again, it's against bad competition, so we really don't know what the Indiana offense truly is. It is go, go, go. Defensively, they're going to be tough. At home, I think Illinois is going to have their issues with this team, but this is intriguing to me. And this is another one kind of like Michigan, Nebraska. I know we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but this one really feels like a coin flip to me. I think Indiana, I'm seeing, is getting 5.5. The over under is 52.5. I like the under in this one. I think it's going to be a dogfight, but Illinois has actually beaten a Power 4 opponent with credibility at this point in the year, and they did it on the road. And this is a veteran-heavy team that had a really nice year last year, a lot of returning productivity. It's not the same feel as what Brett Bielema got to do last year, where he had those thumpers, that power run game. It's going to look a little bit different, but I think they're going to be able to take advantage of Illinois on the perimeter.
Indiana on the perimeter, you mean?
Indiana, yes.
Let me ask you, Tom, just out of curiosity. So when you look back at that Duke game, and again, Illini fans, we know what happened afterwards, and there's video evidence still on the internet that proves what I was willing to do. The thing that was a really big difference maker was the turnover ratio and what you were able to do with the turnovers. So 5 turnovers caused by Illinois. They picked up 31 points on that. When you look at the consistency of how Fernando Mendoza has played and the way that the offensive line for Indiana has looked, they've given up 1 sack. Is that something that maybe is going to, again, be a factor to where you are putting a little bit more pressure on the offensive personnel of Illinois to have to deliver? Because I don't think that, like Duke, in Bloomington, you will see Fernando Mendoza turn the ball over to you and give you pretty decent field position.
I think the turnover margin is going to be really, really slim in this game. It does feel like one of those games where whoever turns the ball over, it might be one time, it's going to be a backbreaker, that type of situation. I don't think you see a scoring fest. I just think there's going to be instances where field position is important. Time of possession is going to be really important. You've got to be able to convert on third down in a game like this, because honestly, the more opportunities you give to Mendoza and company to go out there and score, I think that hurts Illinois. I still like what Illinois is able to do within the running game, but they're going to have their struggles. Their offensive line is almost identical to what they had last year. So I think that's a good piece of continuity, but their struggles last year are still proving to be their struggles this year. This is a toss-up, honestly. Like I said, the line is 5.5 in favor of Indiana. I like Illinois in this game. Give me Illinois 24-21.
Tough to see the loser of this game going on. Now, they certainly could pull some upsets, but it's tough to see the loser of this game having a real clear path. And so people are probably in some respects sleeping on this game just because of the brands not being whatever, Michigan and Nebraska or Ohio State and Penn State or whatever. Yeah, not sexy, but I think we are in store for a really good game. For the night game on Saturday, I think people will really enjoy this. I'll take the road upset too. I'll take Illinois. Man, I don't even have a score for this. Yeah, super close. 27-26.
So what's interesting is that Lee Beebe is no longer going to be playing for Indiana. Reportedly, he's out for the rest of the year. I was talking with a buddy of mine that has very close ties to the program. They feel like that even though he was viewed as running back 3, he may end up being running back 1. I don't have a good gauge. I don't. And to just preface this, just come out clean, I have Illini family members and I have Hoosier family members. So it is going to be a very interesting group chat on Saturday night.
You have to send us screenshots while it's going on.
You know, just to make sure that it actually happens, I'm going to take, because if we go for the clean sweep, it just feels like it's not going to happen. I'll go Indiana wins at home. I'll go that Kirk Cincinnati finds a way to get a win. I don't truly believe that. I think that Illinois is actually going to win, but I just want to make sure that everyone else knows that. I'll go Indiana 20-17 final score.
Let's go back to the SEC ping pong today as we go back and forth. Oklahoma and Auburn. We talked about this a little bit during our sleeper picks segment. Jackson Arnold revenge game here, Cole?
A little bit. Want to point out something real fast. According to ESPN's Pete Thamel, just tweeted. That way we are caught up on this. There's optimism that South Carolina quarterback Lenore Sellers will start on Saturday for Mizzou. He is currently practicing, and it's positive signs for his availability. It does not change my pick.
Same.
Just want to make sure that we threw it out there. That way, when people come back and say, you didn't talk about that. Well, no, we did. So therefore, it's a revenge game. I think it's more than that from a standpoint of both these programs. Like, naturally, the low-hanging fruit is Jackson Arnold returns to Norman, a place that he envisioned himself to be the future successful heir of Dylan Gabriel. Gabriel leaves for Oregon because they want to give him a shot, and he ends up not developing. Now, to be fair, there were a lot of issues with Oklahoma last season. Never liked to hire Seth Littrell as the OC. They had offensive line issues throughout the entire year. No wide receiver help, a limited run game. He was destined to fail, and just hitting reset on his career is probably beneficial. And Oklahoma fans, I don't think hold any harbor or ill will towards him. That doesn't mean they're going to welcome him with the most opening of arms, but it's not that. To me, what this is it's another step toward showing that your coach and your offseason was successful. Both of these teams entered the year with coaches on the hot seat. Hugh Freeze, after a dreadful 2024 season, goes out and he brings in Jackson Arnold. He fixes the offensive personnel. He keeps DJ Durkin from leaving to go to another school, and he continues to build through the transfer portal and recruiting. Oklahoma goes out and they bring in a kid from Washington State as their new OC, and they reunite his quarterback with him, and they go out and they bring in some wide receivers from the portal, and they add in some defensive pieces, and Zach Alley goes off to West Virginia, so Brent Venables says, I'm going to run the defense the way that I see fit. I know what's best for this team, and I believe that this is going to be fixed. And right now, both have been tested. Have they been tested at the full level of what is going to be SEC play? No, but Baylor is, I think, a quality team in the Big 12. Michigan, I think, is a quality team, despite a little bit underwhelming, in the Big 10. So both of these rosters have had an opportunity to show we have made the changes, but now this is conference play. And it could be an opening to a path for both sides that either goes really well and puts you in the conversation for a college football playoff bid or maybe even an SEC title bid, or things start to unravel in this game and we go ahead and have to start firing up the resumes and looking at who are next head coaching candidates at either school. So those are things that I'm looking at in this matchup just from a storyline standpoint. Jackson Arnold is going to have to throw in this game. And I think that really is the bottom line. I'm not saying that John Mateer won't have to throw because I think he will. I think we gave a lot of credit to what Oklahoma's defensive line has been. We got to give a lot of credit to what Auburn's defensive line has been. They can get after quarterbacks and they can make run games obsolete at times. They did so against Baylor. They did so against Auburn. I mean, they did so against South Alabama. So you're both going to have to throw. The problem is that I look at John Mateer and I know that he can get a couple of explosive plays downfield. Like if you told me 45-yard pass to Isaiah Satenga, I could see it. Deion Burks goes for a 30-yard gain and pushed out of bounds. I could see it. Right now, you look at the spray chart when it comes to Jackson Arnold. Stinking dunk passes. It's just little short to intermediate plays. But the wide receiver room every single one of the players that I'm about to name would be wide receiver 1 at almost every school that either one of these teams have faced. Cam Coleman, Eric Singleton, Perry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons, Horatio Fields. There's weapons to where you can get after it if you are Jackson Arnold and feel very, very confident in the direction of where your offensive identity is. But do you have a quarterback that is able to get those plays downfield? And that's going to be, I think, the major telling point in this game. Both of them can run the football. Both, I think, can trust their quarterbacks to take the football and run it up the middle. I think both can be successful on third down. But the difference is that right now, you look at the way that Oklahoma was able to slow down Bryce Underwood. They said, you're going to have to beat us through the air. He couldn't do it. They had one explosive run, and thankfully, special teams kind of kept Michigan in the game, and it was blunders by Oklahoma's sideline than it actually was on Michigan's standpoint. That's going to be how Auburn wins. Auburn gave up over 400 plus passing yards to Sawyer Robertson, who has become one of the better quarterbacks and one of the better passers in college football this year. But also, there's wide receivers that I think are at the same level of what you saw at Baylor at Oklahoma. So I just think that right now the explosive plays favor the Sooners. They favor John Mateer. You can trust that you are going to be able to run the football and that you have weapons with Cam Coleman and Horatio Fields and Eric Singleton. I just don't know if you have the quarterback that's going to be able to connect downfield. The health also of Damari Alston is going to be another underlying thing. Jeremiah Cobb's been really, really good as a running back 1, but you need to be able to have that secondary punch. You're not going to have Darrell Robinson. He's out for a while. Do you trust that there can be a second running back? And on the other side, can anyone besides number 10 run the football at an efficient level?
We're a little low on time, so I'm just going to predict this. Yeah, I don't think Auburn can get it done. I think Oklahoma wins this 31-21. So there's my take. You heard Cole with the breakdown. We're running low on time, so I'm just going
to. I think it's going to be. I think Oklahoma's going to win. I think Oklahoma's going to cover. I got 30-20 final score.
35-31 Oklahoma for me. Bet the over hard on this one.
On to one of my favorites, Utah, Texas Tech. This is where game day should have been, just to let you guys know. Yeah. Of all the ones we said, like, oh, it shouldn't be Miami or Florida, like this was it. Contrasting styles, the flash of the portal, the steadiness of Whittingham out there at Utah. Cole, quick thoughts on this one.
Which quarterback do you trust a little bit more in this matchup? Devin Dampier with his mobility or Baron Morton with his passing attack? You know, the way that Morton looked last week against Oregon State, I think shows that maybe I was down on him. A lot of others kind of doubted him. You're going up against a Kyle Whittingham defense and a Scully defense. Like that is something that is going to be a challenge for you. And it's on the road in Salt Lake City. Rice-Eccles Stadium is one of the most underrated atmospheres in college football. Give credit where credit's due to how they've been able to build up that vicinity. The Utes come out in droves. They will make it loud. Can you win on third down efficiency? And can you win with the explosive plays in the passing attack? For Devin Dampier, my big thing is, you know that you can run the football and you got a decent arm. Can you create those second chance opportunities with your legs? Can you be able to win against this pass rush and not go down, wait for a receiver to get open, or even a running back out of the backfield like a Wayshawn Parker and just dink and dunk it off to him to where you get those yards after the play? I think that there's a lot of explosivity on both sides. It just comes in different elements for the quarterbacks. Whichever quarterback uses its best asset more, I think is the one that's going to walk out on top.
I am very excited about this. Very different styles of offense. It's been a while that Utah had a quarterback that was kind of do it all the way that Devin Dampier is. I liked his game at New Mexico. I loved when he hopped in the transfer portal and went to Utah. I thought the fit was very interesting. I've always compared Utah to kind of like an Iowa of the Pac-12 and now the Big 12, but they've elevated themselves in a lot of places. They play smart, disciplined defense, and they've done very well this year, granted against inferior competition. Neither team has really played anybody that's been earth-shattering, but I think Texas Tech, the clip that they throw the football, if they can keep Utah running throughout this game defensively, they're going to have a chance. The spread right now is in the favor of Utah by 3.5. I like Texas Tech to cover, but still lose this game to Utah. I think the road atmosphere, I think Devin Dampier is going to have his opportunities. Texas Tech has held up well defensively thus far this year, but they haven't faced anything quite like what he presents. You're really going to have to sell out to stop him in all phases, and I just don't know if Texas Tech has the ability to do that. Best bet, again, Baron Morton and company are going to have to play tempo, quick, passing game offense and make you cover every blade of grass for the Utah Utes. But give me Utah in this game. What's the over-under in this? 57.5. I don't know if I love that much scoring in this game. Cole, what do you think?
I kind of do. I'm not saying that I don't feel confident in it, but if you just told me that we're in the fourth quarter and say it's like 24-24, and you just watch Baron Morton find Coy Eakin for a 40-yard score, and then Devin Dampier finds Wayshawn Parker out of the backfield, and he gets some yards, and then you get into Nakari Rogers inside the red zone, and he punches it on in, and that's 31-31, and then it's like back and forth. I could see that happening.
Yeah.
Both defenses get really tired toward the finish line, and ultimately this leads to a bit more explosiveness in the fourth quarter. I could see that.
Yeah.
I feel like this is important for Texas Tech. I don't know if they'll go into a more challenging road atmosphere than this one. I've even spoken with Florida fans who went out to that Utah game a few years ago and said, like, listen, that place was legit, and the way that they pack them in and that just kind of scene is tough. I think this is important for Texas Tech. You spend all this money in the offseason. If you're not winning this one, which Utah might end up being a really good team, man, their schedule is pretty tough. And with the expectations they certainly have to have of themselves with the money they spent, it's big. All that said, I think I'm with Tom. I think this is super close scoring, 34-31. Utah wins.
I don't really care. I know that we're supposed to avoid sweeps, but bottom line is that I think Devon Dampier has been phenomenal. I think that this is exactly what you need for this offense. And more specifically, Kyle Whittingham is getting ready to call it a career. For the standpoint of just making sure that we see him get his credit where credit's due and have a shot to win a national title, play for a college football playoff, what this game means towards going to Arlington, I'm going to go 38-34 final score Utah. I think I'm going to hit the over. I'm still going to take Utah to go ahead and cover.
Last one, back to the Big Ten, Nebraska and Michigan. For all our Michigan fans on here, we promise to only say nice things during this segment.
No, we don't.
Tom, start us off.
Mays and Biff Poggi. I'm excited about this game. No Sharon Moore on the road at Nebraska. There's plenty of people that think this is a coming out opportunity for Nebraska to get a victory against a blue blood program. So far this year, Dylan Rail has been good, but not great. I think a lot of people were expecting the fact that he got Dana Holgerson as his offensive coordinator the back half of last season, that continuity would roll over into this season. It's been good. His offensive line has given him a lot more time to throw, that's for sure, but the competition hasn't been there. We talked about it earlier on in this show, is that their only real data point is against Cincinnati, and this is just going to be a very different circumstance. I think the thing people need to remember about Michigan, I've said it before, and this is not to be overly negative or just, a hater, but this is a service academy offense right now, and you do not have the skill that you've had in the past at offensive line, and especially on the defensive line. I think that's a really important thing in this game for Michigan. And listen, against Oklahoma on the road, they didn't completely give up defensively to the points that we were talking about before with Cole, and they were able to hang in that game because of the defense. But it was just by the end of that, John Mateer and company had enough explosives in the right points that they just couldn't stop the bleeding anymore, and Oklahoma got the win on the road. Michigan is a rare road favorite in this one. I think I agree with them pulling this off. I do think Poggi brings a different energy to the building. I've seen people say, "Oh, is this the end for Sharon Moore if Biff Poggi wins this game?" No, not at all. And I've seen a lot of the things that Biff Poggi has said about how much he cares about this opportunity at Michigan. I think he's there for the team and to try and see them get over the hump in what's a difficult situation, not having your head coach due to a self-suspension. I just am not a believer yet in Nebraska. I know that place will be rocking in Lincoln. This is going to be a great home field advantage for the Huskers, but they have to prove it first. This is the game to potentially prove it. And even still, this isn't showing that you can contend with a juggernaut. This is still a Michigan team that could go 8-4, 7-5, as I have talked about. Let's be real honest about what Bryce Underwood is at this point as well. Are you going to Haynes King him to death against Nebraska? That could work. I just don't see Nebraska. I'm sorry. I just don't see Michigan going that route. They still don't have any answers in the passing game. This is tough. I feel like this is going to be a grinded out, old school leather helmet Big Ten football game. Give me Michigan, but I mean, this is a coin flip. This is really, really close.
Cole.
You know what's interesting to me is that Dylan Raiola, if you look at his numbers, one of the most efficient quarterbacks in college football through three games. No turnovers. I think he has the highest passer rating, the second highest quarterback efficiency rating, one of the highest completion percentages. He looks the part. The problem is that, again, who's your competition? It's Houston Christian, and it's insert the other G5 team
Akron.
that is like what?
Akron.
That's it. Akron. Exactly. Exactly. A team that is going to be probably sitting at the bottom of the MAC at the end of the year. So you don't have a lot of data points to look at and say, well, you know what? He feels the part. He also has been severely underwhelming, I thought, in that matchup against Cincinnati. He didn't have a turnover in that game. He almost had two. Like, remember that. He had two really, really, really bad throws that we would have been talking more about if the Cincinnati defender held onto it. So what do you look like against a defense that is going to get after you and has the opportunity to make you a little bit obsolete? These wide receivers have got to be able to break on open. Dane Key has got to be able to have a big-time game. I think you got to look at Corey Barney having a big-time game. Nazir Hunter has got to be able to have a big-time game, because these were guys that we were kind of talking up in the Dana Holgorsen offense with the spread formation, vertical passing attack downfield. They should take their advantages. Can they take their advantages? More importantly, can Dylan Raiola, instead of improvising and trying to be Patrick Mahomes, just deliver? Hey, I see a wide receiver open across the middle of the field. Don't wait for the highlight play. Just get the ball in his hands and set up a first down. Because this is going to be really important. I think if they weren't able to run the football efficiently enough against Cincinnati, are they going to be able to do it against Michigan? That did have its fair share of faults outside of a few explosive plays against Oklahoma, made it very challenging to move the football on the ground. And then on the flip side, for Nebraska's standpoint, I know that it's Bryce Underwood, and I know that it's Central Michigan. But you saw the data points last week against Central Michigan on how you're going to have to win this football game. Over 100 rushing yards. He is going to have to be able to do this with his legs. And if your defense can't stop him, the way it had its fair share of challenges, stopping Brendan Sorsby, who I think is a worse quarterback than Bryce Underwood, who's to say that you just don't live in third and short situations, trust 19 to pick up the first down, win the time of possession, and then play that as a strength, get into the red zone with Justice Haynes and get your points. Those are things that are going to have to matter in this matchup. I do think that Nebraska is the better team, and I do think that Nebraska is going to make a statement. We have to take into consideration the ruler. And what is the ruler? It's Matt Rule in year 3. What do we know about Matt Rule in year 3? Temple won an ACC title. AAC title. Baylor went to the Big 12 title. Year 3 at Nebraska. The rule is as follows. The ruler is in motion right now for them to have a year to remember. I'm not ready to say college football playoff team. I'm not ready to say that they're going to be in the conversation for a Big 10 title. Schedule's manageable. They easily can use this as a stepping stone in the right direction. Can they do it against a qualified defense? But also, Biff Poggi, can you kind of gain a little bit more traction as a very solid leader in the locker room that truly embodies what is Michigan football at its finest? I think that's something that you also have to watch out for this game.
I have a little more confidence in Michigan's defense, but I also have a little bit more confidence in Dylan Raiola, as crazy as that may be. And so I'll take the quarterback playing at home. I do think this will be a low scoring, grinded out, classic Big Ten game. 17-13, Nebraska escapes at home and wins against Michigan. Sorry, Michigan fans, for not picking you guys, but I'm riding with the home team here with the better quarterback. The better quarterback as of now, right? I think Bryce will be great at some point. So is that all we got for this week? Did we get through them all?
Tom, who are you picking?
Sorry.
I'm picking Michigan, but like this is the over-under is 46.5. Give me the under on that one. I think 17-14.
I just think that Dylan. I just think that Dylan Wright will end Matt Rule year 3. I believe in it, and whether that's crazy or not, I believe in it. 21-17 final score. 20-17 final score.
35-31 final score coming after we all just
exactly
very much
under. Nebraska. You
triple overtime, and here we go. All right, TJ Pittinger, Tom Hannifan, Cole Thompson on the Power 2. We'll be back on Monday to recap some of these and talk about a really good week 5, I guess, coming up. Are we in week 4 now? So make sure that you are locked in with us. Make sure that you are subscribed over on College Football Addiction's YouTube channel. It's where you'll find the Power 2 every Monday and Wednesday at noon. Appreciate you guys for hanging out. Talk to you soon.